As you know, this is part of an ongoing series that we kicked off in August. We've had earlier this month Guy Timberlake speak and Deltek's Will McAuliffe, and of course today we have Gloria Larkin. Next week we have Jamie Gracia, and then of course we have Bob Lofeld, and James Baker is going to be coming back to join us for another exciting round. So we appreciate all the people who participate as speakers and appreciate your participation as well. If you have questions, please use the GoToWebinar control panel to submit them. Make a note, too, when you submit your question. If you want to ask your question directly and have a conversation with Gloria, that's available to you. Just let us know, and we can unmute you for that to take place. And so let me do a quick introduction for Gloria. There you have her information and background on your screen, as well as the image of her book. She's an author, as well as the head of Marketing Outsource Associates and TargetGov. Basically, Gloria's been in the business for a very long time. If you've been in government contracting, you pretty much know who she is, or at least you should. She not only has written books, but she's an expert speaker and does a lot for companies all over this area, and not only this area, but nationally and internationally, and has been responsible for billions of dollars in government contract business. So she's definitely someone that we're very excited to have as a speaker today. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the session over to Gloria Larkin. Gloria, take it away.
Thank you so much. It's really a treat to be here today, and especially talking about this topic, the whole issue of risk. You know, usually government contracting is so perceived as a very dry business, but once you understand how the concept of risk fits into it from a business person's perspective, you can really start setting yourself up to win more contracts. So today I want to talk about why risk is critical to understand and what is risky in the eyes of the federal government, because this is a different perspective than we're used to. How can we actually mitigate that risk, and what tools are required to do this? So if you could go to the next slide, please. I'm going to start right from the very crux of the matter. This is actually conference notes on a proposal debriefing. This was a debriefing by a loser, a contractor who did not win the RFP that they thought was theirs to lose. Let me set the stage for you. This contractor had worked at the agency. They've done previous projects. They said they were loved, adored, that everyone loved their work, and they thought that this was their contract to lose. They had such an inside track on it. Well, when they lost it and they scheduled the debriefing, these are the actual notes from the government that came through as a result of that debriefing. So this is why risk is an extraordinarily important concept for you to not just understand, but learn how to use it as a tool to win contracts in the future. So their technical proposal, overall, number one, this proposal was rated as high risk. Now, we colored the words high and moderate risk so that they stand out, but otherwise this is direct from the government, and obviously we redacted it to take out names of people in the company. So their technical proposal for the people they thought knew and loved them was rated as high risk. The entire proposal had areas of moderate risk in some areas. So while overall the proposal was high risk, in a few areas they were considered moderate risk. And then take a look at the evaluation team and what they were specifically looking for. Installation, they were rated high risk because they showed no specific experience that was required. Project team, high risk, does not show any team loyalty. Those are the government's words, team loyalty. Who would have thought on a debrief that you would see this from a project team standpoint? Content design, moderate risk. They did not show descriptions and designs. This was for portal design. So, and the government says they need a more extensive vision. So Content design was one of the higher scoring areas, and even it was moderate risk. And the schedule was rated high risk. Does not show an acceptable schedule. No checks and balances to keep the project on task. If you could go to the next slide, please. So what do we mean by these kinds of issues of risk? First, I want to talk about how to mitigate risk. I showed you at the very end of a proposal effort when a losing contractor gets that debrief of the slide that we just looked at. Let's start from the very beginning. How do you mitigate risk from the very beginning? First of all, be professional, because appearances count. And you might think that, oh my goodness, this is so basic, Gloria. Why are you wasting our time with this? But I tell you, I've shown up at vendor outreach sessions, at capability briefings where contractors, I've seen women show up like they're dressed to go to the beach. I've seen men show up like they're dressed to shovel snow, depending on the weather. So appearances count. You want to dress like the person whom you're meeting with. That is critical. Another detail, email. Oh my gosh, this is something that happens constantly, and I bet even the GovWin folks will verify this. How many emails are used in the federal marketplace that people are using AOL, Yahoo, Gmail, Verizon, Comcast? All of these free emails, and they want to be perceived as a company who can win multi-million-dollar deals. Just not going to happen. The issues of professionalism in your email, your websites, and oh my gosh, please do not have music on your website, unless, of course, music is your business that you're trying to get the government to buy. But those websites that the first time you get onto their homepage and they have some whatever type of music on there, whether it doesn't matter what kind it is, the first thing a government person will do is get out of it, because they don't want to be perceived as listening to music during their work time, because they're all in cubicles. So turn off the music on your websites and make sure your websites are professional. However, know your niche. For most of us, entrepreneurs at heart, whether you're a large business or a small business, many of us want to be problem solvers. Give us a problem, we'll solve it. It doesn't matter what the problem is. Give us a contract, we'll perform it. But that's not what the government perceives as good behavior. It's risky behavior to say we can do all things for all people. It's less risky to know your niche. It's less risky to lead with your expertise. It's beautiful if you can prove your niche. You prove it with past performance. Past performance is king in this market. That is one of the most solid tools that you can use to mitigate risk in the eyes of the federal government. Let's take a look at a couple of the people that we need to mitigate risk with. Can we go to the next slide? Let's say, for instance, if you're meeting with contract and acquisition staff, the middle line of people here, they're going to be interested in different types of information that mitigate risk than, for instance, the small business representatives. And if you're meeting with program and technical managers, they are even going to be interested in different levels of information than contracting and acquisition. So our problem is that most of the time we go in and say the same thing to whomever we're meeting with. It doesn't matter who the layers are. We're telling the small business reps the same thing that we're telling contracting and acquisition, and the same thing that we're telling program and technical managers. These are big mistakes. This is what causes us problems. This does not mitigate risk. It makes us sound risky if we do not understand that these three layers of decision makers are interested in different levels of information from us. So let's take a look at what kinds of tools that we would put together in order to mitigate this risk. If you could go to the next slide, please. The first one is one of my favorites, and I am the queen of capability statements, I will confess, but having a strong capability statement that is a one-pager, that is tailored to your target. This is where people make the mistake. They do a single capability statement that they use for everybody. It's generic, it's not informative, and it has a lot of marketing speak in it, and that is just a total failure. So instead, creating a one-page capability statement that relates to the target and identifies very specific core competencies, your past performance as relates to them, your differentiators. You know, in differentiators, that's the section that 95% of companies have a very difficult time discussing, even clarifying in black and white. Many people say, well, our people are our differentiators. Well, what about your people? Do they have certain training? Do they have certain levels of expertise? What about them makes them different? Just to say we have wonderful people, well, nobody says we have terrible people. So you have to make a clear, concise group of differentiators so that your targets will understand and appreciate the issues of differentiation that you bring. Opportunity identifier and bid-no-bid process. Why are these important in mitigating risk? Well, many of us try to go after too many things. We're chasing too many opportunities that are not really our niche, because we think the more we throw up against the wall, the better our chances are of winning. And in this market, that is not the case. It may have been 5 years ago, 3 years ago, but today, that's not the case. Today, this is a relationship-based market, niche-oriented, expertise-oriented, past performance-oriented. So bringing those processes into the bid-no-bid thought process is extraordinarily important. Earlier we talked about the 3 layers of decision makers, and here if you can quickly identify which decision maker layer you're meeting with, what is his or her responsibility, and more importantly, their level of interest in your business. For instance, what do I mean by that? If you are meeting with a contracting and acquisition layer, a contracting officer, contracting specialist, they're interested in 2 things, your contract vehicle and your past performance. That's it. That's all that they're interested in, whereas your program, technical levels of people, they want to hear your technical discussion. They want to hear your differentiators. They want to know what you're bringing to the table that's going to help them accomplish what they need to accomplish. Totally different discussion. Bonding may be an issue. We have a question that we're going to address shortly related to bonding issues. However, that's not an issue in many contracts. You have to know when and where to bring up the issues of bonding. Financing, contract financing. This wasn't an issue until the economy tanked, and many businesses lost their financing. They lost the ability to finance the contracts that they won. This is a critical issue. If you address it up front, you mitigate risk in doing business with you. And this last item, we could do a whole session on this last item, CRM system. You know, in building relationships with all of these multiple layers of people, it's important to have some sort of system to track who you're talking to, what you're saying to them, the last time you talked to them, what the opportunities are you're thinking of working with them on. You know, and frankly, I don't care if you use a shoebox with 3x5 cards or Salesforce.com or Basecamp or ACT or Goldmine, but in this area now, In order to mitigate the risk in losing touch with your targets, a CRM system is an absolute requirement. Next slide, please. So as we move into mitigating risk, what do you need to do today that will help you mitigate risk on every contract opportunity as you move forward? The first is create a very strong niche statement. What is it about your capabilities, your services, and your products that will eliminate any risk in doing business with you? Are you the best at what? Not everything you can do, but what are you the best at? And practicing a 20-second elevator pitch, this sounds so basic. However, you know it as well as I do. You've heard people who will talk for 5 minutes and you still don't have a clue what they do. So if you're one of those folks, you want to have in 20 seconds a statement that can be very crystal clear, exactly what you will do for that target. Using a powerful capability statement, that one-page document, if you know how to create it and tailor it to each individual target, you will start getting those meetings that you want. You will start getting in front of the decision makers that you want. And past performance. The idea of past performance, understanding how it's different from experience, that's a whole different session. We should target that one as a separate session altogether. Financial stability, we talked about that. One thing we did not talk about is capacity. Government loves seeing that you have the capacity to perform the contract. So if the largest contract you ever won was a $2 million contract and you're trying to win a $20 million contract, they're going to want to see how you can provide the capacity to perform on that $20 million contract. If you cannot prove that capacity, your probability of winning shrinks. Bottom line, how do you get that capacity if you don't have it? Partners. You pull them in as you need them. Your partners may be large businesses, small businesses, mid-sized firms. The point in having partners is to fulfill all of those areas of risk that you cannot do in-house.